Hi, everyone. I know you've been anxiously awaiting for this day to come with bated breath, and I would like to think it's because you wanted to hear me talk, but no, it's because Downton Abbey's on tonight. It seems like it was just a year ago that I was standing here delivering the first sermon of the new year. For those who are new to the church, I've talked about this topic a few years now, as Karen has said. It was usually titled Obituary, since it is about those who have died as well as past events of the year. But a few years ago, someone called the church in a panic after reading Obituary, Donna, Janesky, and they thought I died. So I don't use that term anymore. I had to come up with a new title for this year's sermon. My interest in this topic began over 35 years ago when, working in hospice, we had to write our own obituaries as a training exercise, and it was pretty daunting. So throughout my nursing career, I was the nurse who was always drawn to the patients who were terminally ill. And I tried to assist families and help them deal with the process of death and dying, which back in the day when I first started nursing was quite difficult because doctors never even told the patient anything about their diagnosis, or it was hush-hush, it was all a big secret. And they used to be down at the very end of the hall. That's where they put the dying patients. But there are a few cultural differences to note. In Scotland, death is considered imminent. In Canada, it's considered inevitable. But in California, death is considered optional. So here we are once again, looking back at the past year, 2015. So let's review what's on our minds, how to encapsulate the last year, and I think some of the best ways to do it is to look at the top 10 Facebook topics. So I'm going to read them. U.S. presidential election, November 13 attacks in Paris, Number 3, Syrian civil war and refugee crisis. Number 4, the Nepal earthquakes. Number 5, the Greek debt crisis. Number 6, marriage equality. 7, fight against ISIS. 8, Charlie Hebdo attack. 9, Baltimore protests. And 10, Charleston shooting and flag debate. Now, you probably haven't kept track, but 6 of these 10 have to do with war and violence. And from Twitter, the Paris attacks, legalization of same-sex marriage, Bruce Jenner's transformation, that was fascinating to the world, Black Lives Matter, and Leonard Nimoy's last message. And you know, when I read that, I said, I wonder what that message was. This was it. Wait a minute, I gotta do it. A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved except in memory. From Leonard Nimoy. Live long and prosper. And lastly, the top 10 words from Merriam-Webster. These are the most looked up words. Pretentious. Says a lot about where we're thinking. Ubiquitous. Love. Love, that's a good one. Cynical. Apathetic. Conundrum. Albeit. Ambiguous, integrity, and affect. Interesting. And the word of the year, drum roll, is not even a word. It's a suffix. Ism, as in racism, fascism, socialism, vandalism. So that should remind you a little bit about what 2015 was like. Kind of a really mixed bag, but I wish some of this was different. Did you know that not many people die in Jacksonville? Americans would rather make the entire topic disappear by hiding it with euphemisms, and I always like to share some of these with you. George Carlin said, "I'm getting old, and that's okay, because thanks to our fear of death in this country, I won't have to die. I'll just pass away." If you read the obituaries in the Times-Union, people depart in many ways. Here are some from 2015. Scored a front row seat in heaven. crossed the river home, transitioned from labor to reward, took that imaginary ride, became free to hunt in the forests of heaven, cruised peacefully through the veil and stepped into Jesus' arms, granted his angel wings, slipped the bonds of earth to arrive on the shores of heaven, and joined her beloved husband to dance together as a heavenly couple. Obituaries can be most interesting, and several of you have let me know that you started reading them because of these talks. I know Jay has mentioned it a few times, and some of others of you have said, I started reading obituaries. Did you know that you can leave requests in your obituary? Larry Upright, an 81-year-old man from North Carolina, had a very special request. Don't vote for Hillary Clinton. Mark Twain remarked, "I've never killed a man, but I've read many an obituary with a great deal of satisfaction." I recently finished a book by Ann Hood, one of my new favorite authors. Lois, she's the one who wrote the knitting book. Well, you must get this one. It's titled The Obituary Writer. It's a work of fiction, and the main character becomes a writer of obituaries quite by accident. When a distraught husband and father she meets wants people to know what his wife and daughter, recently killed in an auto accident, were really like. Most obituaries are full of facts, degrees, numbers, job affiliations. Those are the ones that I don't like too much when I'm scanning through the page. But facts are not what made a life. So after telling about the place of birth, accomplishments, the number of grandchildren and siblings, the obituary writer in this book would say again, "Tell me about your loved one." And it is here that the essence of the person is revealed. And it is this kind of obituary that provides comfort to the grieving and makes for very fascinating reading. Here are some of words from the actual Times Union obituaries from throughout 2015. At a very early age, Sharon Starling of Jacksonville was taught by her father to speak like Donald Duck. This quickly became her trademark throughout her life, and she entertained many using this wonderful gift. Many obituaries note the departed made the best ribs, the best potato salad, the best muffins, the best sweet tea, spaghetti, fruitcake, you get the message. Donald Peel proposed to his wife with this infamous line, "Are we going to get married or what?" Fred Wheeler made a great sport of conversations. His usual response to any question was, "I don't know," and to any affirmation, "Yeah." And then there is Louise Johnson, remarkable in that she is survived by 14 children, 58 grandchildren, 130 great-grandchildren, 60 great-great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-great-grandchild. A prodigious number. So, how do you manage to have an obituary that captures what you were all about during your time on this earth plane? And yes, you will have an obituary. Jim Morrison's, in the words of singer Jim Morrison, he said, "No one gets out of here alive." Well, here's one way. You write it yourself. Emily Phillips, a 69-year-old pancreatic cancer victim from Orange Park, who lived only 29 days after her diagnosis, wrote her own obituary, which quickly went viral, both for its originality and uplifting inspiration. A Times Union letter writer was so moved, she said, "Her story will cause many of us to pause and think consciously of our own mortality, and that life is, in truth, like the blink of an eye." Her obituary is not about dying, but rather about living, a lesson learned. I will share with you an excerpt from Emily's obituary. She begins with, "It pains me to admit it, but apparently I have passed away. Everyone told me it would happen one day, but that's simply not what I wanted to hear, and much less experience. Once again, I didn't get things my way. That's been the story of my life, all my life." She writes of her memories and influences. Her family gives apologies and acknowledgments. In conclusion, she says, "So I was born, I blinked, and it was over. No buildings named after me, no monuments erected in my honor, but I did have a chance to know and love each and every friend as well as my family members. How much more blessed can a person be? So in the end, remember to do your best, follow your arrow, make something amazing out of your life. Oh, and never stop smiling. If you want to, you can look for me in the evening sunset, or with the earliest spring daffodils, or amongst the flitting and fluttering butterflies. You know I'll be there in some form or other. Of course, that will probably comfort some while antagonizing others, but you know me, it's what I do. I'll leave you with this. Please don't cry because I'm gone. Instead, be happy I was there, or maybe cry a little bit. After all, I have passed away. Today I am happy and I am dancing, probably naked. Love you forever, Emily. But this story doesn't end here. Apparently, others were taken so by Emily's obituary that a daughter in Richmond, Virginia, plagiarized it almost verbatim for her 104-year-old mother when her mother died. She did leave out the part about dancing naked, however, because her mother was 104. I think it might be appropriate to say a word about grief here. Author Ann Hood captured the anguish of the living and gives advice on comforting the grieving. Grief is not neat and orderly. It doesn't follow any rules. Time does not heal it. Rather, time insists on passing, and as it does, grief changes, but it doesn't go away. It can come and go like huge waves that pull you under, while other times your breath comes easier. Here are the things that can bring comfort: hot tea, clear broth, and a blanket on one's lap, the sound of one's loved one's name said out loud, someone to listen, a hug. Those who are grieving must tell their story many times, and the best thing you can do for a grieving person is to listen. So let us remember members and friends who left us in 2015. Sharon Laird died in January. She was an educator, historian, political organizer, manager of senior services for the city, and a very active UUCJ member. She was a force to be reckoned with. Martha Forsyth, in January, Martha was a friend of the church who moved to Alabama and has been there to be near her daughter for the last few years. And she loved meeting for lunch and tea, and I treasure the times that I spent with Martha listening to her stories of her travels. Bill Grotefend, in June. Bill was a quiet and unassuming, behind-the-scenes kind of guy. An engineer and a stickler for detail, he did many good things for this church, including a significant donation for the church roof repair. Bob Broward, also in June. A protege of Frank Lloyd Wright, Bob was the beloved architect of our award-winning design church. He brought some of our first modern organic architecture to Jacksonville and is cited as one of our regional treasures, and the paper today called him an iconoclast. Theo Lichtenstein in July, very intelligent, well-traveled, well-read. He was an active participant in Playing with Ideas group for over 20 years, and when he spoke, he always backed his points with research and objective data. He loved his wife Sadie dearly and expressed many times how fortunate he'd been to have met her. And T.L. Larson, for some of our old-timers may remember Bud and T.L. T.L. Larson died in August, and she was a most energetic, hardworking, and intellectually curious person. And according to her obituary at 81, she still had a current concealed weapons license. Interesting. Now, of interest is that these are all the folks who are members and friends who have died this past year. 2 of them are listed in the Times-Union today as prominent, eminent people from Jacksonville who have died. And other local Jacksonvillians, my list is not complete, but I give you a sample. Lois Gibson, well-known nurse who was director of nursing at the program at FCCJ. Blanche Cobb, at 114, was Florida's second oldest woman and the world's seventh oldest living person. And she lived here in Jacksonville. And at 100 years old, her 80-year-old daughter said, "My mama was standing there feeding the hungry," when she was 100. And Robert Burns Jr., ex-Skinner drummer, died from a car crash at the age of 64. Here's a few celebrities who died, but I'm telling you, the Times-Union has done a big spread today in the paper of celebrities on both pages and local celebrities, so this is getting to be, they've not done this to such an extent before. But here's a few. Leonard Nimoy, 83, actors Fred Thompson, Omar Sharif, Marty Ingalls, Martin Milner, Dick Van Patten, Ann Mira, Henry Morgan, Maureen O'Hara, Anita Ekberg, Jane Meadows, Theodore Bickel, Stan Freberg, and singer Natalie Cole, died on December 31st. Mario Cuomo, 82, former New York governor. Paul Prudhomme, celebrity chef. Beau Biden, 46, son of the vice president. Bob Simon, CBS correspondent. Julian Bond, 75, civil rights leader. Robert Schuller, 88, Crystal Cathedral televangelist. Carl Jersey, father of the pill, died at the age of 91. John Nash, beautiful mind professor. And Marshall Rosenberg, founder of the nonviolent communication movement. Here are some athletes. Frank Gifford at 84, Moses Malone, Daryl Dawkins, Meadowlark Lemon, Ernie Banks, Dusty Rhodes, and that great philosopher, jokester, and all-star Yankee, Yogi Berra, at the age of 90. Now, I love yogiisms. You've all heard his yogiisms, but I'm just going to remind you of a few of them. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. You can observe a lot just by watching. It's like deja vu all over again. And I think his greatest gift to us is, it ain't over till it's over. To me, this last bit of Yogi's philosophy means hope, promise, and possibilities. No throwing in the towel, no despair, no futility, because the game is still on to the very end, the very last breath. Resigned to being overweight? Your project not going well? Still not speaking to your brother-in-law after all these years? Thinking, what's the use? I'm too old, I'm too tired, I'm too inexperienced, I'm too anything to consider completing that. My game is over, so why try? Well, Yogi has news for you. If you are breathing, the game is still on and you can score. If all this talk about what your own obituary will say, perhaps it has you thinking about those New Year's resolutions that you are considering. Yes, we all want to be better persons. We want to eat healthier, lower our golf score, save more money, floss our teeth. You know, we make all these resolutions. But as we write them down, please keep in mind Yogi Berra's wisdom. It ain't over till it's over. Stay in the game and don't wait for the new year, but continue to set goals and strive to attain them. That's what life is all about, and until we breathe our last breath, we are still in this game. Now, as is our custom for the past few years, I'd like to recognize those who are no longer with us and who may have had no one to mourn their passing. I'd like you to join me in reciting the names of those who were homeless and died in Jacksonville in the year 2015. Unless relatives claim their bodies, Jacksonville's homeless who die are usually cremated through a city program that covers the $960 cost of an adult cremation. Their ashes are then scattered in a flower garden at Hillside Cemetery on the north side. I'm not sure who is there to recognize them or say goodbye. I would like us to honor their existence and recognize their passing by reading their names together. And just give a little thought as you read each name. This was a person we want to recognize. You were there. The insert is in your order of service. Joseph Allen, Terrence Burton, Miles Carlton, James Crocus, Michael Covington, Richard Jr. Gagnon, Gary Hall, Jackie Harris, Loretta Johnson, Kenneth Life, David Owens, Timothy Page, Douglas Saville, Kenneth Sharp, Ronald Smith, Joyce Smith, Michael Sosby, Jocelyn Tyndall, Peter Waters, Stephen Young. For all of us, there will come a time when it is truly over. And I'd like to leave you with these words by Henry Scott Allen. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I've only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And an old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were together, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way in which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. Nothing is hurt. Nothing is lost. One brief moment, and all will be as it was before. Blessed be.